This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Marivelle Tarouk. School boards across Ontario are scrambling this weekend after the provincial government announced a multi-million-dollar cut to specialized educational programs. The slash in funding affects both elementary and high school students. But as Adrian Chung reports, the Doug Ford government is defending its decision.
Is there any rhyme or reason to it?
For me, I don't know what their reasoning was. I can't tell.
School board trustees like Robin Pilkey are trying to make sense of it all. This after the provincial government announced cuts to special education grants to the tune of $25 million.
Did it catch people from the TDSB off guard?
I think it caught most people off guard, not just at the TDSB. I think that there was no indication that it would be coming on Friday afternoon, so I think most boards had the same reaction.
The cuts eliminate grants from a specialized fund, including some after-school programs like Focus on Youth, which teaches employment and leadership skills for at-risk youth in low-income neighborhoods. In an email to CBC Toronto, the press secretary for Education Minister Lisa Thompson said this fund has a long track record of wasteful spending, overspending, and millions of dollars of unfunded commitments, and that the province's plan better aligns with the needs and priorities of Ontario parents, teachers, and students while respecting taxpayer dollars. The opposition has questions.
What's really concerning to the folks that I've spoken to in the organizations and the school boards is they're trying to get a picture of where does this government really want to take things. It looks right now like a whole series of small little cuts.
As do the Liberals. Former Premier and Education Minister Kathleen Wynne also weighed in on Twitter, calling the cuts reckless and irrational.
The government is cutting a little bit everywhere without giving us the full picture.
Some educators say these grants aren't a luxury, but rather vital for students.
It helps all students who require special tutors in class, sometimes just for a short time, so that they can be the best that they can be.
And there is a fear within the education system that the province has more cuts in mind.
We can glean very little. We know the names of the programs that they're cutting. Not all the list that they provided doesn't apply to every single school board.
The Ford government is expected to meet with representatives from school boards in the coming weeks. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Tomorrow morning, there will be an unexpected return to Queen's Park for the province's politicians. The Ford government has called back the legislature to stop a strike by Ontario power generation workers. The 6,000 members of the Power Workers Union run the Darlington and Pickering nuclear plants, as well as hydroelectric dams. Union leaders served OPG a strike notice on Friday. The PCs plan to introduce back-to-work legislation tomorrow afternoon. It will likely take until Wednesday or Thursday to pass. A much-needed holiday gathering for families affected by those tornadoes that ripped through Ottawa-Gatineau in September. This weekend, they got a break from rebuilding with a surprise Christmas dinner.
It feels like home because every day me and her would always go out and play, and now it's like we can't really do that because we're far away. But now with all this, it's like I can actually see her and we can play. It's just fun. Well, we've been through so much, and now it's just like it's time to be happy.
About 200 Dunrobin residents enjoyed visits with Santa, games, gifts, a hot meal, live music, and much more.
Family's coming back to me going, "What are you doing? Are you sure you can do this?" And I'm like, "Yep, don't worry about it. I got it handled." I'm loving every minute of it, and that's why, I want to see the sparkle come back in some of these kids' eyes that, don't know what to do, or am I going to get that present for Christmas?
McGrath is from Arnprior, but knows the Dunrobin families through a baseball league. She put the event together with about 40 volunteers. And just a reminder, our Sounds of the Season charity drive in support of local food banks continues until the end of the year. We're collecting money and non-perishable food donations. You can donate in person here at the CBC Broadcasting Centre or online at cbc.ca/SOTS. Meanwhile, in Toronto, displaced tenants of 650 Parliament were treated to a similar celebration A 6-alarm fire forced 1,500 people from their homes in August. Today's dinner gave them an opportunity to reconnect with neighbors and friends.
Tonight, sort of an accumulation of all the struggles we've been through since August 21st. And we're just here to have a good time, enjoy Christmas, and get a bite to eat, right?
It was a chance to capture some holiday memories and enjoy a hot meal with friends. Area Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam says since the beginning of this month, 40 families have been relocated from hotels into proper apartments, and she's calling on Torontonians to help.
Hope that they can probably identify some vacant apartments if they have some spare space in their home that they're not using. We have people who are living on their own, seniors, as well as families of 6 and 7 and 8 members living in hotel rooms, and that's just not fair.
Wong Tam says residents likely won't be able to return to their homes until June 2019. A little on the mild side to end off the weekend. Let's check in with Shannon Bradbury for the forecast. I guess this is above seasonal?
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. But it was a pretty nice weekend, especially throughout the day today. Lots of sunshine. Temperatures right now around 2 degrees in Toronto, 0 in Windsor, and -1 in Ottawa, dealing with a little bit of flurry action into parts of southern Quebec. Overnight tonight, cold front moves through. This isn't bringing with it a lot of moisture. However, what it is going to do is change those wind directions as we head into your Monday. So if you are commuting, maybe north of Toronto, especially closer to Barrie, Newmarket, and then even that streamer coming off of Lake Huron, anybody toward London, Kitchener-Waterloo, you might be running into some snowfall to start off your day. Not looking at huge amounts of snow, but perhaps from that 5-centimeter range. And just want to show you, Toronto's actually pretty much right on average for a snowfall to date. We've got around 22 centimeters so far, and average is around 21. Sudbury, though, way above normal, and those in Atlantic Canada even more so, as we're dealing with a lot of active weather there. Overnight tonight, -1 in Toronto, -2 in Barrie, and -1 in London. Notice that icon showing a little bit of snow in the mix, so that's definitely a possibility. Now, as we head toward your afternoon, 2 in Toronto, and you could see a little bit of wet snow, but again, the bulk of that is going to stay north of the city. Just something to keep in mind as you head out the door. Now, temperatures into your long range are actually on the rise. Unfortunately, if you are hoping for a lot of snow on the ground for the holiday season, this could not mean the greatest things, and we'll talk about this coming up in the long range, Maribel.
Okay, well, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks. Honest Ed's may be long gone, but the store's free turkey tradition lives on. Hundreds lined up today for not one, but 2 giveaways at Bloor and Bathurst. We caught up with the people keeping the legacy alive. Have a look.
Right? Because we don't have freezers like Honest Ed had.
Well, I'm here with Freeman Real Estate. They're carrying on an amazing tradition that Honest Ed's did for years to give away turkeys to the community.
Well, it just shows us that that our city does care about their people, and we just like to see that even just for one day, someone reaches out and tries to help someone else.
One nice thing about this event is that it's Santa Guida Fine Foods down the street pitching in, it's Spirit of Math pitching in, it's Loblaws pitching in, it's Starbucks pitching in, it's Freeman Real Estate pitching in. All of our agents are here helping out. We're a family helping other families. I think that's the point.
There was a void in the community, and there's so many people in need. I personally got here at 7 o'clock this morning and was humbled by the lineup all the way down the block. There was all these people that are in need in the city, and they're willing to wait 6 hours to get a turkey. It hits you in the heart.
I am under OW with $720 a month. You can imagine why I'm here. I'm a good chef at home, and I will do something good, to light up our spirit, and the family will be happy. Thank you. Gobble, gobble.
I'm working to help both West Bank and Ellis Don to carry on a Mervish family tradition, which is to give turkeys to people who are perhaps struggling a bit.
The tradition started in 1987, so 30 years it's been running, and it's a blessing that it's back. It feels wonderful by the end to have handed out so many turkeys.
I feel like it's also giving another breath, another soul to the store, because it's been closed for a while. But I think through the traditions we can keep it up and be able to continue and remember the Honest Ed's how it used to be.
It's being called a breakthrough. After intense and urgent negotiations, leaders from almost 200 countries, including Canada, reached an agreement on climate change. Salima Shivji has a closer look at the new rules that critics say don't go far enough.
It is so decided.
With that, the deal is done. To cheers and jubilance from political leaders after a long night of negotiations. To save the promises to fight climate change made 3 years ago in Paris. Now each country that signed on will have to keep track of their progress. Richer countries will help poorer ones pay for their measures to tackle global warming.
Okay, let's do it.
Arriving home, the leader of Canada's delegation was full of praise.
In this day and age where we've seen challenges with different international organizations and, a different geopolitical alliance out there, you had almost 200 countries come together and have really tough negotiations, but on the end, agree on something that is so critically important, climate change.
But there was plenty they couldn't agree on. How to count the emissions reduced in cap-and-trade systems like Quebec's, that's shelved until next year. So too the need to do more to limit the planet's rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees instead of simply talking about it. For some environmentalists, that means tackling the question of fossil fuels head-on.
Starting a difficult conversation that Canada needs to have about how we're going to transition away from our dependence on the oil and gas industry.
Difficult indeed. In Grand Prairie today, more than 1,000 people rallied to remind the country that Alberta is struggling. They want the pipeline that Ottawa bought built, a project seen by others as an obstacle to the federal government's climate targets.
They're simply not credible as long as they own and build pipelines and expand fossil fuels.
A difference of opinion that underscores an enduring truth. However tough international negotiations may be, Canada's hardest climate change battles will be fought at home. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
The death of a 7-year-old child has reignited the debate over the Trump administration's immigration policy. The young girl from Guatemala died while in custody of U.S. border agents. As Ellen Morrow tells us, her father is demanding an independent investigation.
Jacqueline Kaal Makin's mother and her surviving children. Her young son's clothes, the picture of poverty Jacqueline and her father were trying to escape. I don't feel very well, Claudia Makin says. And Jacqueline's father doesn't feel very well because she died in front of him. Jacqueline's father, Neri Kaal, is disputing claims that Jacqueline did not have food or water in the days before she died.
Jacqueline's father took care of Jacqueline, made sure she was fed and had sufficient water. She and her father sought asylum from Border Patrol as soon as they crossed the border.
There's also anger that Kaal was reportedly interviewed in Spanish and asked to sign a form about his daughter's health in English when his native language is a Mayan dialect.
The family is seeking an objective and thorough investigation and are asking that investigators will assess this incident within nationally recognized standards for the arrest and custody of children.
But the Guatemalan consul who spoke to Kaal says Jacqueline's father does not blame U.S. officials and that he's grateful for efforts to save his daughter's life. That hasn't stopped angry protests over her death. Though the Department of Homeland Security has denied responsibility, activists are tying the death to the zero-tolerance illegal immigration policies of the Trump administration. That is why these migrants resort to extreme measures, this woman said. This girl lost her life due to the anti-migrant aggression of this administration. But the politics surrounding Jacqueline's death matter little to this family, distraught and far away. A young mother who'll never see her young daughter alive again. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Tomorrow marks 2 months since recreational marijuana became legal in this country. And while things got off to a shaky start with supply issues and delays in licensing, it hasn't deterred some cannabis companies from their plans to dominate the global market. Catherine Cullen takes us to Europe to see why Canada's pot expertise is in high demand.
Welcome to Denmark's postcard-perfect region of Odense. Swaths of agricultural land outside a major city where they grow tomatoes, cucumbers, and now, something new.
It's actually coming from Canada.
A Danish vegetable grower has teamed up with a Canadian cannabis company to embrace the country's new medical pot market. Danes say they're benefiting from Canada being ahead of the game.
Canada and cannabis, it's in the front in the world, so they have a lot of knowledge.
And this is only the beginning. Aurora Nordic is building a 1 million square foot facility with plans to sell in Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Iceland too. They want to be the largest pot producer on the continent. But there's competition.
The warm-up's over, man. Now we start playing. It's great. It's just a start.
Canada's largest pot producer, Canopy Growth, has its eyes on the global market too.
About 90% of my time is international, right? Where I'm going is Europe, South America. Last week was Australia. There are now 30 plus countries that want to regulate cannabis.
He's building in Denmark as well and exporting to Germany's medical market. He believes in the next few years, more and more countries will legalize recreational pot, and he's trying to position his company for global dominance.
If we do it just right, it could be one of those great Canadian companies that disrupts the whole world.
But back in Denmark, recreational pot remains illegal.
I don't think it's a top issue right now.
Not enough interest from the public and little support from police mean few politicians here are interested in the legalization debate, he says.
If you look at the Danish parliament, I don't think you can today see that there will be a majority towards legalizing.
But it's not today that Danish and Canadian businesses are betting on, only that if Canada's example to the world eventually proves to be a good one, others are sure to follow. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Early in the year, like after one show closes, I get together with my writer, my director, and we lock ourselves in a room and we throw ideas against the wall and we kill ourselves laughing for the most part.
You'll want to grab your ruby slippers for this one. We take a deep dive into Ross Petty's latest fractured fairy tale after the break. Ross Petty's annual holiday musical puts a comedic spin on beloved fairy tale classics. Now in its 23rd year, he is taking on a whole new story with The Wizard of Oz, a totally twisted family musical. It's on now until January 5th at the Elgin Theatre. Our Dwight Drummond caught up with Petty to talk about his latest fractured fairy tale.
Take very well-known children's fairy tales. They are iconic stories, whether it's this year's Wizard of Oz or last year's Christmas Carol or Cinderella or whatever, and we take all those characters, but we write a brand new storyline around those characters. And we include a lot of Canadian elements, and that's what a fractured fairy tale is, a panto.
A panto, and it's a lot of fun. And one of the things I find really interesting about these shows is that as somebody who works in news, if you follow the news and you follow current events, there you go. You see a lot of local news in the show, and international news too. How do you weave that all in there?
Well, you know, one of the most fun parts for me is early in the year, like after one show closes, I get together with my writer, my director, and we lock ourselves in a room and we throw ideas against the wall and we kill ourselves laughing for the most part. And most of those things never sit with what's going to be on that stage that Christmas, but that's how we do it. It's a lot of brainstorming.
I noticed something, because I've been watching these for a lot of years now. You always have a diverse cast that reflects the city.
It reflects the city, it reflects the world we live in. I mean, yes, today we have Dorothy as a young black woman. We have, in past years, we've had a Filipino girl play
I think Snow White, was it? Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's very important for us to reflect the world we live in.
People coming to this show, if they've never seen it before, kind of describe what goes on, because I've been coming for years now. It's kind of a, full disclosure, kind of a family tradition in my family. I've booed and hissed at this man in a dress for many years. It's been a lot of fun. So kind of tell them the craziness that goes on here.
Well, you know, I don't always just wear a dress, Dwight.
But you're usually a villain.
Yeah, I'm a bad guy,
and as soon as you hit the stage, we're like, boo!
Yeah, but do you think Captain Hook wears a dress? I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, I actually retired from performing on stage 3 years ago as Captain Hook. And
I was there. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Were you booing?
Yes.
And
I was
I thought that was you.
And every kid in the
I thought that was you. I remember that boo. And that's what I loved about doing these shows, because everybody is so participatory in the audience. And you know what, Dwight? I mean, the really important thing for me over all these years of doing these shows, that we have introduced the magic of live theater to thousands of children in this province and across the country, because we've done a lot of television specials of our shows as well.
Okay, Shannon, we're getting into the holiday spirit now, so everyone's wondering, is it going to be a winter wonderland next week?
Well, we're going to start just looking into early Monday before we dive into your long range, because there are some hints of snowfall for parts of southern Ontario with that lake effect northwesterly winds. Keep this in mind for your Monday morning, especially for areas north of the GTA, closer to Barrie, and then, for instance, Grey Bruce counties. But those northwesterly winds remaining gusty into your Monday, Tuesday, and temperatures will be a little bit cooler. But this is stopped around the evening hours into Tuesday, and we start to see the return of more of that southwesterly flow. So hints of temperatures on the rise. 4 in Toronto for your Wednesday, 4 in Windsor, and 1 in Ottawa. A mix of sun and cloud doesn't sound too bad. As we jump to Thursday, 5 in Toronto, a daytime high of 6 degrees in Windsor, and even the risk for a little bit of shower activity. As we look at the end of the week, 5 for your Friday in Toronto, and yes, that is rain in the icon. So unfortunately, for those people that are wanting snow, it doesn't look too great by the end of the week. As we jump toward your Saturday, though, temperatures look to be cooling off as that low departs, so we'll keep an eye on the risk for snowfall. Areas further north have a little bit more higher confidence by the end of the week to see this, as perhaps even mixing your snowfall into northern Ontario, for instance. Of course, by Friday in Mississauga, 4 degrees, and it's looking like rain. Quickly in Oshawa, 4 for Friday, and your week is looking quite warm as well. 5 for your Thursday, 6 on your Thursday rather, and 4 on your Friday. And in Ottawa, looking like mixing, but again, 4 degrees for your daytime high, so definitely above seasonal. We'll have to keep an eye on that, though, as the days approach.
Okay, we'll do. Thanks so much, Shannon. In 1948, 9 sisters made a pledge to meet every year for Christmas. 70 years later, that promise lives on.
Well, today is the party,
Phyllis Viola is one of two sisters still alive. Her sister was too ill to don her dancing shoes this year. Viola was raised by her sisters after losing her mother when she was just 2 years old. The event started in one of the women's basements. Today, it's a mega event in a hall with a buffet dinner. We asked Viola how she kept the tradition going.
Keep all your troubles at home and come and enjoy the party. And have one every year, because that's the only way you're going to get along.
Viola's granddaughter has taken over the party planning, and they hope to keep it going for another 70 years. That's our show for you tonight. Good night, everyone.